When I was around 6 or 7 years old, my brother had a friend from school come over for dinner, along with his mother and her boyfriend. I don't remember much about the boyfriend, except that I didn't like him. He wanted to play airplane with me. You know, where the adult lays on their back with their feet in the air, and the kid lays on their feet acting like they're flying. He did it in front of everyone. He never tried to get me alone, but I didn't like it. I told my parents I didn't like him, and if I recall correctly, I believe they didn't really care for him either. Needless to say, he never came to our house again. Not long after that, my brother's friend's mom went missing and was later found dead. Turns out, the boyfriend killed her. I have never gotten over it, and the fact that even as a young child, something about this man rubbed me the wrong way, it still freaks me out to this day. Listen to your gut. There's a reason you get that feeling about a person or a place. So this happened a month or so ago. I was riding my scooty to the market for vegetables and watermelon. On the way to the market, there is a corridor that forms a traffic signal. I was waiting at the corridor for the light to turn green, when suddenly an automobile driver pulled up next to me. He looked like he was in his mid-20s. At first, I thought nothing of it, but then he laughed and I turned my head towards him. He looked me up and down and smirked. So after the signal opened, I went off to the market and bought my stuff. I was on my way back home when I noticed the same driver waiting at the corridor. I quickly passed him, then he started driving behind me. I felt like he was following me, and he was. I was so scared. I drove my scooty even faster, but he was still right behind me on my tail. At this point, we were near my house, but I didn't want this creep to find out where I live. So instead of going down the lane towards my house, I took the one next to it. There was a small path where both lanes connected. It was really narrow, so automobiles could barely pass through it. At last, I arrived home safe, and the driver didn't find out where I live. After that, I never saw him again. I still don't feel safe, but I'm just glad he didn't find out where I live. So this happened when I was in 7th grade, almost 5 years ago. For background, I had a friend, let's call her S. S was a transfer student who joined my class in the 5th grade. Back then, we didn't talk, but a year after she joined my class, I randomly saw her and her mom at the stationery shop near my house. At the shop, me and S talked for a bit, and I learned she lived at the church campus nearby. After that, we spent more time together, since she was in my class and lived so close to me. At the time, my mom had a small coaching business, and she used to teach classes for children. S asked me if she could join for class, and my mom agreed. Me and her used to go to classes together and became really close. So, coming back to 7th grade, S and me were always together. It was like we were inseparable. One day, I forgot to bring my book, so S lended me hers. On the last page, there was some random, not particularly good stuff written about me. I was horrified and mad all at the same time. I reported it to my mom, and she called S's mom, complaining to her. The next day, S didn't come to class. A few more days passed, but she didn't come to school. On the same day, S's mom called and said she would not be attending classes anymore. She transferred S to another school. A few days later, I found out she was attending classes again by someone who lived at the same apartment complex as me. I was on the terrace when I saw her again. I didn't want to talk to her, but she came up to me begging and claiming she would never do it again. I was standing near the edge, which was not very sturdy. I felt a push from behind me. I was about to fall, but somehow managed not to. When I turned back around, S was running away. No one else was out there, so it was clear she was the one that tried to push me. I never talked to her again after that. I think she moved to a different place. To be honest, I don't think it was really creepy. More like a betrayal. I don't know why she hated me to go to that extent, but it's good that it's over. I live in Ireland, where the legal drinking age is 18. I'm 20, so in this story, I'm not breaking any laws. Last weekend, me and my friend decided that we would go out to the pub for a few drinks after a tough week at work. We got ready and left the house at 10 p.m. We decided to walk to the pub since it wasn't very far and we definitely weren't gonna drink and drive. About 20 minutes later, we arrived. We took our seats and ordered drinks. Everything was completely normal until I noticed two men staring directly at me and my friend. They were dressed in jeans and Nike hoodies, with tattoos on their hands and neck. I thought nothing of it at first and just figured the men were a little drunk. But time passed and it was continuing to happen. My friend also picked up on it and she told me she found it quite unsettling. However, it was a very busy night at the pub and there were lots of people around. 1 hour passed and there was no change. Me and my friend had only had 1 or 2 drinks at this point and we were still very sober. We started to get freaked out and thought it was best if we leave. We got up and headed to the door, and the two men approached us and made a comment on the dresses me and my friend had on. I'm not gonna say what they said here because it was very rude and inappropriate. After they had said that was when we really started to panic. My friend called her dad as my parents were away on holiday at the time. He told us he would come pick us up as quick as he could and told us to try to get away from the weirdos. It was pretty dark out, but we had thought our best chance was to try and get home. We had been walking for 3 minutes, and I looked back to see both men were following us. We both called the police and started to sprint as there was not a single soul around. We ran into our apartment, and they started banging on the door. I had never felt so scared. We ran into my bedroom and locked the door, absolutely petrified. The men continued shouting and threatening us to open the door. Luckily, the police arrived and both men were arrested, but we were still trembling after that experience. And I think it's safe to say that neither one of us has gotten much sleep since that night or for the past week. Now, I'm aware that this was probably caused by the influence of alcohol, but I certainly do not believe that it's an excuse to make up for what happened. And in my opinion, this was a very creepy and disturbing event. I will never forget the thoughts running through my head as I ran home. Please remember to stay safe, and thank you for reading. I work for my city's water department. My everyday job consists of repairing leaks or doing installations for businesses and homes. There are 2 parts to our water department that keep everything running: distribution, where I normally work, and production. Production deals with the chemical side of things. They chlorinate the water and do sample checks. Production is also responsible for the upkeep of our water well sites and our water storage facilities, like the tall water towers you might have in your city. Mowing the grass is one of those responsibilities. Both parts of our department are extremely understaffed right now, so we sometimes give the production guys a hand with the grass when they need it. A couple of weeks ago, it was my turn, and here's where the weirdness begins. My city is in central Louisiana with a population of about 45,000 people. We're surrounded by wooded area. No matter which way you travel, in or out of town, you're gonna see plenty of trees. As such, a lot of our well sites are located out in the boonies. Most of our city trucks are 4-wheel drive with mud grips because it's needed more often than not. I had 4 sites to cut that day. I headed out before sunrise to the site at the end of a very long dirt road, where if trouble strikes, your phone better be charged because no one is going to hear you yell for help. Surprisingly, this isn't where my strange encounter took place. The sun was rising as I was approaching my first site, and on the road ahead of me stepped out a doe with her 2 fawns. Excitedly, I hurried to snap some pictures. To my surprise, the mama and her babies were not afraid of the loud rumbling diesel I was driving. The speckled fawns made their way across the path as the mom calmly watched me in the truck. Once the babies were safely across, the mama looked back the way she came, and then joined the little ones in the tree line on the opposite side of the road. At the first sight, I breezed through my mowing, loaded the equipment back onto the trailer, and texted my mom some pictures of the deer as I headed back into town. My mom messaged me back saying, "I've read that deer are an omen of good fortune. Looks like you're going to have a great day. Be safe, I love you." And I did have a great day. I knocked out the next 2 sites without issue, and everything was going smooth, until I reached the gate of the last place I had to mow. McKeithen site is the biggest one we have closer to town. It's about the size of a football field. It's not in the middle of nowhere, but it's on the outskirts of the city. There's normally plenty of traffic that travels on the road there, so there's really no feeling of seclusion even though it's surrounded by thick woods on 3 sides. I've cut this spot plenty of times, but that day felt different. I pulled the truck through and hopped out to lock the gate behind me. Immediately, I felt like I needed to get back in the truck as quick as possible. I made my way down the driveway to park near the tower like I have many times before, but after I parked and killed the truck, everything felt heavy and silent. I don't know how long I sat there until I was able to will myself to open the door and get out. After I got out, I instantly felt eyes on me. The feeling was coming from the back right corner of the field outside of the fence, in the tree line where the palmetto bushes grow. I calmed my nerves and reminded myself that I was surrounded by an 8-foot inclimbable fence with a locked gate. If someone had a gun, they could have shot me if they wanted to, but they weren't going to actually get to me. If the barbed wire at the top of the fence didn't get a face full of weed eater string blades would. I jumped off the zero turn and took off mowing, keeping an eye on the back corner during every pass. After about 2 hours, it took multiple runs due to the overgrowth. I had the entire front mowed, and it was time to hit the bottom back by the creepy corner. I was about to head over that way, but the mower blades wouldn't engage. So I had to take covers off, pull grass out of the belts, and out from under the deck. I had to grease the pulleys and do all sorts of troubleshooting. I finally got the blades going, but then the gas light came on. I didn't realize it until later, but it felt like something was doing everything it could to keep me from going to that part of the lot. I finally got everything up and running and mowed the back as quick as possible, doing everything I could to keep my sight on the fence the whole time. I finally got done and loaded the mower. I still had to do a little bit of weed eating around that area, but when the weed eater wouldn't start, I knew it was time to go. I hadn't had an issue with that weed eater all day. That was the last hint I needed to get out of there. After pulling out of the gate and locking it behind me, I turned onto the highway to head home, but not without looking back in that corner one last time. That's when I finally saw it, the unmistakable shadow of a figure standing in the palmettos. It wasn't trying to hide or make itself unseen. It was there. Being a safe distance from it, I stopped and watched. The figure moved to the side as if it were trying to bend to see me better on the road. It had no distinguishing features. No hair, no clothes, just a person-shaped mass. I decided I had to get as far away from there as I could. The thought that I had been so close to it for so long and never saw it sent chills to my core. I called my mom later that night and told her what happened. My mom told me she did some more reading about seeing a deer and learned that they are a sign of protection. That some people believe that a deer means a higher power is watching over you. After my mom told me that, I couldn't help but think, what if I had not seen the deer that morning? Would I have even seen the shadow? Would it have been able to do something to me? Why did it choose me to show itself to? Is it something about me, or was it tied to that part of the woods? My mom texted me even later that night. She was sitting out on her back steps when she heard some rustling near her storage shed. She shined her light into the darkness, and what stood there but a deer. Deer had never come into her backyard before, but that night, a large deer stood tall, staring back at my mom. She told me she felt like it was there as if to say, "It's okay. He's safe. Don't worry. We've got him." Hello, chill and thrill seekers. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoy this type of content, please consider subscribing and click that notification bell to be alerted of all future videos.